I certainly learned a lot about the neurobiology of OCD. It was good to brush up on that. But I think the learning that is going to stick with me the longest is I learned a lot about the parental perspective on this disorder that I really hadn't gotten before. A lot of my advocacy work ever since I was diagnosed with OCD when I was 13 has focused on talking to other people with OCD and talking to other kids with OCD. Um, and because of that, I've kind of always approached OCD from the same angle, which is, oh, I have it personally. So, like, what does that mean? What's my relationship to it? And when making this toolkit, we would have a lot of discussions about OCD, and it was always really interesting to hear kind of the other angle on this disorder, which is the angle of the caretaker of someone with OCD.
What I've learned through being involved in this project, there are just really many very different things. It's a very different experience from developing a research project. So every time when the group comes together for discussion, there's always something new to learn. For example, maybe like phrases of expression that I would use without thinking, but they may have very different meanings to people who have lived experience of OCD. The other thing that I've learned is that there really is such a need and hunger for resources about OCD. It is still a very much neglected and misunderstood disorder.
I have learnt so much through being involved in the OCD and the Brain Project about the way the brain works and how that impacts on OCD and its treatment. I've also learnt a little bit about what's coming up in terms of the research field, in terms of the neuroscience and the research field. But I think the main thing I've seen and therefore learned a lot about is co-production and the power of that when it is really done, when everybody comes to the table willing to work in genuine equal power. I think everybody in this project was really open to hearing everybody else's view and to genuine collective decision making. And I think the product of that can be seen in the quality of the resource that has now been developed. And I will remember that feeling and the absolute excellence, the impact that that can have on what we are producing for the users of the resource at the end of it. I will remember that for the rest of my career.
But it was so humbling and really, really informative to hear the perspectives of parents and having to navigate the responsibility of their child having OCD, as well as a lot of the pain and suffering they go through themselves because of feeling helpless out around what their kids are experiencing, as well as siblings and the impacts of having a sibling with that condition, and really making sure that as we move forward with psychoeducation, with neurobiology education, with advocacy, that we're really making sure that we support not just the people with the disorder themselves, but their families and people in their lives who can also be severely affected by the disorder, and really making sure that we are supporting as many people and impacted as possible. Another really big thing that I learned from being involved with OCD in the brain was just really how important and powerful it is to bring together all of the stakeholders involved in this space, and how possible it is to have conversations that are understood and respected by everyone, and really turning the myth on its head that scientists can't talk to patients and vice versa. I think we have so much more common ground, and we can only do better together rather than apart.
That I've learned more about the scientific aspects of OCD and how it impacts the brain functions. And I've learned that there are many brilliant people involved in doing this research and being interested in the treatment of OCD, which gives me great hope for the future of OCD sufferers and their families.
I think I've learned how to do projects in an inclusive manner, to have many different voices being heard, to offer a platform where the researchers are not top down telling what is good and what is not, but having like an equal level where people with lived experience and researchers have the same exchange and are exchanging ideas and thoughts on the same level, and to have a conversation rather than like a directional exchange.
I've definitely learned mostly about the neurology. I was completely clueless about the neurology behind OCD, and it's not something I've ever necessarily been interested in until joining this project and finding out that it's actually not only just very interesting, but also super helpful in understanding my own brain and making it feel less of a monster and more just a brainless function. And that's definitely massively helped me. I've also really enjoyed the creative side, picking the colors and just, the voice, all that really, just the wild little things on the side that like you wouldn't even think that would matter, but really do.
Some things I've learned through being involved with OCD and the brain is a reaffirmation of the importance of collaboration. This resource would not be as incredible as it is without the diverse stakeholders who participated in creating it. I really relied on everyone's expertise, whether their deep knowledge of the science and the research, bringing their lived experience to the table, and or those who brought the creative side of things to bring it to life. And needed all parties, all expertises, all areas to get across the finish line.